Welcome, BBCers, to episode number 239 of the Broken by Concept podcast, the number one League of Legends solo queue educational and motivational podcast. Charlie has arrived in our setup finally. I saw one of the comments was saying, why does the camera talk so much? Charles was talking too much.
Yep.
He had to be in the frame. We think we have a long-term solution here. We'll assess because we've been saying that. And we've changed setups.
Yep.
Every week.
So he spawned here. He spawned in the room.
I can't see you, Curtis. I just realised
that's
through
fine.
Nathan's body.
I can hear you. That's all that matters, Charles.
And
we get a tan through the episode as well.
Yeah.
Get a bit of a tan.
It's going to be a good one.
D.
Now, people are going to... This has been a much anticipated episode or much requested. We're going to be doing a BBC dictionary thesaurus...
No.
What's the difference between a dictionary and a thesaurus?
A thesaurus defines synonyms and a dictionary
see.
defines words.
But like in the dictionary, can't you have like a word, like you have the synonyms next to it? Isn't that?
Yeah.
I think so.
You can.
Depending on how...
So
yeah.
we should come up with like the BBC dictionary.
Okay.
Like a physical copy from this.
Interesting.
And then we can...
Someone's going to write it.
Yeah, so if you're interested in writing along...
Anyone in publishing, yeah.
Yeah,
Get
publishing.
involved.
That's what we're going to be doing today. So we're going to be breaking it down into in-game and out-of-game. So this is all the terminology that we've used or created in this podcast over the last, coming up 5 years this year. And these are things that people ask us all the time. There's like Reddit threads that get asked all the time. This first one here, like, what is a lol state? People say LOL.
Yeah, what is a lol state?
And there's like, I swear there's a Reddit thread that's created every couple of weeks, or it's in a comment.
Okay.
So if anyone sees this, you can just link this episode.
Yep.
All right. So I think that's where we start, guys. Let's start with
Lull state.
what is a LULL state, a lull state, and I think you came up with this, Curtis, this terminology.
Yeah, I actually...
So
Can't
let's define
remember.
it. You can't remember.
I mean, I don't know where it started, but very simply, a lull meaning a time in the game where there is a lull in action. There is less action, not as much happening, right? So these can be very large lull states whereby everyone is dead. You're coming off a reset. You're walking back to lane, things like that. I would kind of call them major lull states. These are moments where basically your mental stack, which we'll define in a moment, your mental bandwidth, if you will, is kind of not being used, right? Because you're not fighting anyone, you're not doing anything immediately, you're just literally walking your character somewhere, right? So these are kind of we have those major lull states, and we have kind of miniature lull states, meaning they are the same thing, but they're maybe shorter, briefer periods. An example of that in lane may be in between waves, sometimes even in between trades. It's like I've just taken a trade, my cooldowns are down, I'm going to step back, and then wait for my cooldowns to come back up. That would be kind of a miniature lull state.
For jungle, that would be during a camp, use your abilities on the camp. Like, let's say some champions are easier than others. Let's say Briar is the most obvious one. You press W, you auto attack Q, and then I have time to check lanes.
Yeah, so the obvious question is going to be, why is this relevant? Why is this such a popular term? And the reason, very simply, is because a massive part of League is gathering information, right? Scouring the map, panning your camera, what's going on, whether it be you're looking for your teammates' locations, whether you're looking for what summoner spells have been used, whether you're trying to identify what the next neutral objective is, what sort of trades are being taken somewhere. You're trying to gather information. And because League is such a fast-paced game with so many things going on, and you're constantly engaged with, again, fighting and trading and CSing, these lull states need to be, in a way, kind of emphasized as periods of, again, moments where you can gather information without your mindset.
Downtime, really.
Downtime, without your mental stack imploding.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why they're so important.
I would also say that, like, the better you are at certain skills, like, different times in the game can become lull states. Like, the better you are at clearing camps, the more that is a lull state. The better you are at knowing how your champion just one-shots a wave. If you're in lane 1v0 clearing a wave, maybe that is also a lull state. You can actually allocate your mental stack elsewhere. But if you're bad at those things, if it takes you mental energy, then they aren't actually lull states, right? Because you have to think about what you're doing.
Yeah, so when it comes to lull states, exactly right. I think you have... the better you get at your champion and the better you get at the game holistically, the more muscle memory you develop, the more lull states are going to be available to you. But then there's also the quality of the lull state usage itself, right? And so again, the big thing that we're going to be doing in lull states is gathering information. So you can actually get better at gathering certain pieces of information. So when Nathan were to look at a lane, right, panning his camera looking at a lane, he could very quickly, within a second or two, identify whether that lane is gankable, what he should do around that lane. Does he need to hover? Does he not need to hover? He could gather and process that information so quickly in that lull state such that he can already be making the next decision. But for someone that's newer to jungle, that is maybe not familiar and hasn't developed the skill of reading lanes or reading waves in a lull state, that is a skill that would need to be developed. So I guess you got very simply the quantity or frequency of lull states, and then you have the quality of your lull states. And this is something that you will grow and develop over your time playing the game.
And people don't realize this is an advantage over other players.
Yeah.
People think that being good at League is like the skills, outplaying people in the skirmishes or just being high farming items. Like, the gathering information, if I collect more information than you, I might not immediately be able to beat you, or maybe even I lose this game against you, but over a long period of time, I'm going to have just well more informed with my decision making. It's obvious, it makes sense, but people don't think of it as a clear advantage. Like, I collect more information than you, so I'm going to be more consistent than you. It's a really consistency thing. Like I always say to my junglers, like if you're not gathering information, or maybe you're 50% of the way there, you're not optimizing your lull states, you've got so much room to be inconsistent.
You can remember, I was going to say, very, very simply, League is at the highest levels, a strategy game, right? At the highest levels. And you can't, the quality of your strategic decisions are fundamentally based in information that you're gathering, right? Just cut to the chase, just cut the fat. Right, you need to make decisions about should I go here and take this objective or should I not? Should I gank this lane? Should I not? Should I invade here or not? Should I trade this? Whatever the hell it is, every single decision that you make is based off against some sort of information that is being gathered. And the more you can do that, and the higher the quality that information is, the easier your life is going to be, even when it comes to skirmishes. Right? What abilities have been used? What summoners have been used? What's their HP like? And I would say lull state usage and camera panning, they kind of go hand in hand, right? Like you can be great at identifying what a lull state is, but if you can't pan your camera physically to an area, that can cause challenges as well.
Yeah, and the other thing I was going to add is that like for a lot of people, this can be a big 20%er or even more. Like if you're coming out of base and you don't know where and what is the next spawning neutral objective, or you don't know who is strong and who is
pressing
weak.
tab, literally pressing tab.
If you're not pressing tab, if you're not seeing when's dragon, are we giving dragon, is the enemy top laner fed or are they not fed? Because I see so many people get surprised. They come into combat with a champion and they're like, oh, that guy's fed, I didn't realize. It's like, well, you should have recognized that, right? So yeah, it can be a massive like 20%er.
And you could be simultaneously good at a lull state in a certain period or a couple of weeks or days, and then you could just be completely drop the ball and just play autopilot as well. Like that's important. People just think of this as a skill that I develop. I'm good at, like, this is what happens with me. Actually, whenever I start playing poorly, the first thing that I'll look at is, am I using my lull states correctly? Am I min-maxing the amount of information that I can be getting? And that is massive 20%.
I think lull state usage is probably, is the most common learning objective I give in the Mid-Lane Academy. And, what information specifically I tell the client to gather, that's different, but just it's usually some iteration of you need to be aware of your jungler's location. You need to be aware of the key threats. You need to be aware of the next neutral and make a decision about what you want to do about it. It's some iteration of gathering information in lull states. And if you're new, if you are looking to get bang for buck value out of your own reviews or just your own gameplay, just getting better at League of Legends, lull state usage would probably one of the most valuable learning objectives or areas you could focus on that will give you massive results.
And looking at the rest of the terms that we're going to be going through today, so much is tied to lull states.
Yeah, it is. You're right.
So it's good that we're starting with that. So let's move on to the mental stack now. So why is the mental stack important? What is the mental stack?
Well, I think I'll just start very quickly. As many of you know, all of you should know by now, playing League, it's a very mentally taxing game. It's fast-paced. Shit's going everywhere. The game is you're constantly on, right? And
humans' brains are limited with our working memory. What we can store at that moment before we get overwhelmed.
Exactly right. So we need to embed as much of these things into our muscle memory and pattern recognition and utilize pattern recognition as much as humanly possible.
And that's where playing the game a lot helps significantly with that.
Exactly right. So that if we can lower the burden on our mind, our brain, very simply, we can actually then use that freed up space to then utilize our lull states or think more strategically, or maybe put more of our mental energy towards particular areas, whether it be thinking about how do I win this game, or what is the win condition, or you can then you can strategically kind of place that energy however you want. Mental stack is essentially that is kind of the underlying, I guess, terminology we use to describe the phenomenon of your mental bandwidth, essentially, right? It's how occupied your mind is. It is the severity, or not the severity, it's kind of just the extent to which you can gather information, isn't it?
And we were sort of forced to come up with this term because when coming as us being like high elo pro players, coming to coaching the general player base and lower elo community, we had to figure out, why do people struggle so much in team fights? Why do people have no idea what's going on? Because they just don't have that muscle memory, that pattern recognition inbuilt and developed. So this is the term that we sort of had to, I mean, we're not creating this term, but we had to like grasp this and tell people, make people aware of it to help us coach better.
So this is a term that is used frequently in the fighting game
community.
They use it a lot because I think, again, there's a lot of combinations. I'm a complete noob here. You might be better about this, Charlie, but like I'm assuming there's a lot of potential combinations of like abilities or things that could come at you. And so if you don't have the mental capacity to anticipate and you're just reacting, you're just gonna get basically hit by everything. Is that
potentially? I think like a way you could frame it in that sense is like the mental stack is sort of the bridge between all the individual concepts and then your execution, your ability to execute them. So like a lot of people might theoretically understand like a reset or a trade or how to CS, but it's the combination of them and that like affects your ability to execute, right? And that's where the mental stack comes into play and just understanding that, right?
And mental stack is something that it is developed over a long period of time, as long as you are playing with intensity. Actually, even without intensity, to be honest with you, I think that's actually
muscle memory is a big part of mental stack, right?
Exactly right. So you can simply kind of, get in reps without intention and you will develop your mental stack just in an incredibly inefficient way, but you will also cap out. The more intensity you play with, the more intention behind your decisions, the more sophisticated your mental stack will become.
I'm realizing as you're talking, there's so many terms you're using. Like we're describing mental stack with intensity and reps. We're talking about, I don't even know if these are on the list, but these are all things.
But I will say though, if you can wrap your head around mental stack, I think it is actually probably one of the most important concepts for developing a healthier relationship with the game.
Yes.
Because one of the main questions is why am I struggling so much with this champion, or why am I struggling so much with just doing the basics of League of Legends?
Or why do I keep making the same mistake?
Why do I keep making the same? It's because the rank system, I mean, it's just multiple things. Number one, League is just inherently a very mentally overwhelming game with many variables. But number two, the rank system constantly pits you against opponents that are at your level, if not even higher, such that you're forced to react to new types of information. Therefore, you're unfamiliar with these scenarios. Like, I haven't seen Hui use the abilities like that before. So now, your mental stack there is no pattern, there is no past experience to refer back to, such that now your mental stack is having to allocate a lot of energy towards being like, what is that? How do I deal with that? Where'd that damage come from? You're trying to problem solve that. That's occupying.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, when you do the task manager on a computer, it's like you're booting up a really intensive program that's occupying a lot of your CPU. It's the exact same thing in League. But but over time, what you want to do is familiarize yourself with all these things. So they're all running at they're occupying such limited RAM. In your brain. That's kind of what you want to get it to. So, does that all make sense? I guess does that cover it? You think?
I think it does. I think, just tying off from that analogy a little bit at the end there, like. If you're in a situation, because the mental stack can mislead you sometimes, guys. That's what I just want to quickly talk about. Because if you were to die in that lane, let's say your mental stack is really preoccupied with the Hui who's constantly spamming QEs on the wave or something, and you've never dealt with that before, right? And then you die to a jungle gank. Your problem isn't that you aren't good at jungle tracking necessarily. It's actually that you didn't understand the matchup. But And the mental stack helps you reach that conclusion, because if you just looked at that surface level, you'd be like, oh, I just died to a gank. That's why I lost the game. That's where the mental stack can kind of help like unravel those problems a little bit.
I absolutely love that. The mental stack, once you understand it and you develop actually an understanding of what it feels like when your mental stack is overwhelmed, you can use that as a red light, as a signal to be like, hey, you don't have a handle in this situation. You should probably investigate that and really make sense of that situation. So then again, time back to your example, you would go back to that moment and be like, what is it that really caused me so much stress here? Why was I guess stress is one of the emotions that comes out when your mental stack is overwhelmed. You can have like anxiety, nerves, confusion, anger, frustration. All of these emotions are byproducts of an overwhelmed mental stack a lot of the time. That is one of the main things. So if you become aware of your emotions in the review and be like, oh, I remember that time where I was moving to this play and I was completely overwhelmed. I felt really anxious. Okay, what did I not understand about this situation? And even if you can employ logic in hindsight in the post-game review, that will help you make that mind-muscle connection and further develop your mental stack. Remember, mental stack is not only developed in-game through repetitions and having that hand-to-hand combat experience, it is actually also developed through making that connection in the post-game, employing logic and breaking down that scenario and understanding the pieces and why that situation went the way it did. And a lot of the time, mental stack is being overwhelmed is you not understanding something about the game. You're just simply not anticipating it. I didn't know that champ could do this. I didn't know they could do that amount of damage. I didn't know that objective could do this. I didn't know the range of that ability. It's something that you're unfamiliar with.
Yeah, that's why it's always getting tested when you verse better players. Because
Exactly
better
right.
players are like, if you verse a better Ezreal, they'll pressure your mental stack with better quality Qs. The better Ezreal will pressure your mental stack with Ws into Es. The next Ezreal would pressure you with the passive.
And this is why one of the biggest narratives in League constantly stays around, which is this whole idea that people say, oh, the rank system never gets better when you get higher elo. When you get to platinum or when you get to diamond, they're still just... Everyone's playing whatever the hell it is.
People make basic mistakes.
Everyone, no matter what rank you're at, everyone is always making basic mistakes. I will see challenger players die at a level 3 gang,
Of course.
because your mental stack is overwhelmed. That's the way the game is. And so once you understand that, and it's not even about understanding, it's about respecting the mental stack. That's the most important thing here. If you could take anything away from this video, it's respecting the mental stack.
Because that's when you can see the beauty in exceptional players, because you really understand like all the billion things they're doing at once, and that's why
that's why Trevi's scary to watch.
It's insanity.
It's pure insanity because he's doing everything at such a high level. His mental stack is like it's a robot. It looks robotic. It doesn't look human.
So consistently. That's it's not just a one-off game.
No, exactly right. That's the scary thing.
All right, next one here. We're not going to go in order. I just want to pick one, sort of give us a good, nice flow of the podcast. Playing with intention. So people are very good in League, in my reviews, in my coaching sessions, to sort of reacting, sort of going through the game. Oh, so there's a fight happening here, this, and then they sort of just reacting to everything that's going on in the game. There's no intent behind things. You know, junglers see someone. Oh, okay, the enemy team looks like they're pushed up on the mini map. I'm just going to gank that without thinking about what's the next objective, how much gold's in my base. They're sort of just meandering around the map. How would you guys talk about playing with intention?
I think the simplest way to put it is it's just the opposite of autopilot. You're on pilot. You're flying the plane yourself. You're actively choosing where to be on the map. You're actively choosing when to base, who to play around, what to concede, what not to concede. We're not getting sucked into plays by our team. We're making choices that align with our champion's identity and what we want to do.
And it's not the fact that you have to know what the correct answer is. This is how you improve.
Yeah, exactly right.
You just have an intent. It might be wrong or right, but the fact that you had an intent will allow you to get better.
Because you can test and learn. Yeah, exactly.
You can test and learn. If you run around the map and you don't have no intent, you're never going to improve. This is how people get stuck. And this, I guess, sort of ties in with high intensity. But is there any more to say? I don't think there's not much on the
last thing I'll say is that, you can be, like you said, I think it's important to really stress this. You can have completely no idea about a scenario, but it's like, I don't know if I can kill this guy. I don't even know if this is the right play, but you know what? I'm going to go for this kill. I'm going to actively make this decision. Like, you're not doing it because like you said, autopilot. You're literally doing, I'm choosing to make this decision, and usually it has to have some sort of a reason.
Yeah.
I feel like I can kill this guy, or he doesn't have this cooldown, or I feel like he's too overextended. There has to be some, no matter how basic, hypothesis that you're testing.
Yep.
That's what playing with intention is.
100%. And you can either have the wrong hypothesis by having like a misinterpreting information or missing information, but that's fine, right? You want to be able to look at the VOD in hindsight and say, I did this because this.
Yeah,
and
exactly
do that
right.
every single
And if there is
decision.
no because this, there's no intention.
Yep.
So now talking about the next term we've got is high intensity. Really simply, I think intensity is playing with intention and utilizing lull states. Those would be the main things that I'm thinking about with high intensity, right? I guess I also think about high intensity with my physical position as well. You know, you can have that, you know, the gamer posture where, you know, you're sort of, you know, crouched over, or people have like their feet like up, you know, it's like keyboard in the right position. You know, sometimes you just need to wake yourself up a little bit. And that really helps for me. So physically, I'm playing with high intensity as well as I'm locked in the game as well.
Something else on the intensity stuff is just like having your life together to a point where you can sit down and play the game without thinking about other stuff. I think that really influences intensity. Like, have you had a shower today? Have you eaten today? Have you had the caffeine if you need caffeine? I think that stuff's super important because like there are some factors like you cannot play with intensity if you like haven't eaten, you know, it's just not possible.
Or you know you got other things to do.
Yeah,
you know I shouldn't
homework,
be playing this game. I should be doing X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
And then you can't put all of your mental capacity into the game because you're thinking about something else. I think very simply though, like Nathan said, it is you're at least attempting to use your lull states and you're playing with as much intention as possible.
Yep.
And you're going out there and you're trying your best. That's really what it is. That's what high intensity is. And high intensity gaming doesn't mean it's good quality. It doesn't mean
You're
it's
not going 16-0 every game.
No, it doesn't mean anything. There is like
No.
it has no bearing on the outcome of that game or what the game should look like. Nothing.
It's inputs. It's all inputs.
It's exactly right.
Yeah.
It's all input. It's not exactly not the output can't tell you jack shit about intensity.
I do agree with the physiology though, because I often say like when I'm trying, I'm holding the mouse hard. I'm gripping the mouse. You know, if I'm lazy, I'm like my palm is maybe on the mouse.
Yeah.
But if I'm playing with intensity, I'm like my hands like this. I'm like with my tips of my fingers, like trying to control.
Yeah, that's true. I grip the mouse more as well.
Yeah.
You know, I'm upright. Like my
100%.
I tilt the keyboard like CS:GO.
Oh, yeah?
I love that.
That's
dude.
good,
'Cause
that's
I feel like I'm on stage at like an ESL event or something like that. That's what I do.
I know, but if I'm in a game and I'm feeling like I'm playing lazy, I do the switch like halfway through the game. Like, come on, let's just fucking put in some effort. You know, just sit up in your chair, just grab the mouse, like, let's go.
So I want to move on here to reference points and champion identity. These two go hand in hand. I guess even before reference points, champion identity. So champion identity is probably we maybe even should have started with that. That is
Probably.
really, really, really important.
And champion mastery as well.
Champion mastery, champion identity.
It's not even here.
Not even here. But all right.
So the outer game section.
Let's talk about this for a second.
Yep.
So every champion in the game does something different. They want to achieve certain outcomes, and the way they want to achieve, they all want to achieve their outcomes in a slightly differing way. Champion identity is basically a term that describes what is the champion fundamentally about and why does it want to do what it's doing. So it's actually kind of a combination of what, how, and why. Right? Usually, though, what a champ identity initially was actually a term that was created to get more into the why. Why does this champion want to do this?
Yeah.
What's the mindset behind this champion? Because we talk a lot about, oh, you should go for this kill, or you should do this, you should full clear on this champ, whatever the hell the input or the actual raw decision is. But there's very rarely discussion about why. Why does this champion want to do this? Why does Carthus want to full clear?
Why does it feel good to do certain things?
And that's actually where this spawned. Where this spawned was that I'm like, okay, I play Orianna like this. Why does it feel good for me to make these sorts? I know what to do. I could even maybe describe kind of how, but why? And then peeling back those layers and getting to the root cause, that's what champion identity is. And the reason this is very important to understand is because it helps people learn the champion faster. Because if you know if you can clearly identify and have clarity over the champion identity, then getting into the decisions becomes a hell of a lot easier to review and learn. Because it's like, oh, I shouldn't be making this decision. Why? Blah 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 blah. You can tie a lot of decisions back to champion identity.
Yeah, which is basically like to try and define it a little bit, just the strengths and weaknesses of the champion.
Yep.
What is the champ good at? What is the champ bad at? And what does that mean, right? It's like Rek'Sai. What is Rek'Sai's identity, Nathan?
Rek'Sai's identity was good at ganking. I guess that sort of ties a little bit into reference point. Playing the map, getting win conditions ahead, snowballing games, denying options for the enemy jungler with your tremor sense, tracking.
So it helps you direct your attention in the game a lot.
But I would even say what a lot users said there, Nathan, was more reference points. So champ identity would be more like champion. Rek'Sai is a gank-oriented,
early game
centric jungler that revolves around utilizing terrain scaling
and snowballing,
and to snowball the game and get lanes ahead, whatever the hell it might be.
Playing with win conditions.
That's more the identity, and then based off of that, then you have reference points. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so reference points, I guess
they're more specific.
So like looking for dives, like you're really good at diving with the Rek'Sai, so you should be looking for dive with your win conditions. Is that what you?
Yeah. So reference points are essentially to flow on from this, because I guess champion identity and reference points go hand in hand, right? So you have champion identity is like the why. What the hell is this champion about? And based off what the champion is, what are some kind of guidelines or things that you can orient orient yourself around when playing this champion? These are essentially kind of like think about them as the walls around kind of like the rules that you set kind of in a way. I don't like to call them rules. Let's say principles that you can kind of follow with your champion that basically outline how to have consistent gameplay. And then kind of what Nathan was talking about there, some reference points for Rek'Sai. Do you want to maybe repeat what some of those were?
Dive in, ganking from certain angles. There's certain places on the map that are very good for you to gank from. Walls, especially top lane, mid lane, identifying win conditions. There's also as well reference points. There's so early game and then mid game.
Yeah,
they can change. So it's like the first thing that I'm thinking of is I want to be playing more so for side lanes. I mean, I guess that's for a lot of junglers, but specifically assassin junglers. Even though Rek'Sai sort of builds Bruiser, I still want to be thinking like an assassin, right? Because you're very good at. You just have one short little burst combo, really, at the end of the day, still.
Yeah, so that would keep you out of trouble because you wouldn't be doing what a lot of Rek'Sais do, which is sit mid and throw Prey Seekers, right? You actually want to be in Fog of War.
Yep,
right?
And they show on vision all the time, right?
Yep.
Utilizing Fog of War, yeah.
So the way you want to view it, right, is that reference points are very handy because when you're thinking about entering a game with my champion, you're basically culling all of these other options. It's like, well, if my champ is good at these things, and this is kind of what my champion wants to do, I definitely don't want to be doing that. I don't want to be doing this. It may not tell you exactly what to do in a moment, but it's going to tell you what not to do pretty clearly.
Yeah.
And so that's going to give you a massive amount of direction in your gameplay.
I know what a good early game looks like with my champion, and I can replicate that as much as possible. And so all this information's coming at me, and then you're constantly thinking about the reference points to bring you on track. It's sort of think about it as you're on just train tracks. Like you want to just constantly be on that track and not derail your train.
But I want to maybe a tangent, but I think it's important. Reference points are very, very good for people learning the champion, and they become slightly less important or significant the more you develop champion mastery, right? Because the more champion mastery you develop, you remember that we kind of spoke about that Dreyfus learning model, where you kind of get to the point in your journey where you've internalized the principles, and now you're looking to break the principles, and you're looking to test the limits of the principles, and you're getting creative. So like they're a great start for, let's say, for the first 75% of your journey, maybe even 80% of your journey. In the last maybe 20% or 10%, whatever number you want to say, then it's like, okay, I want to maybe see if I can flip that reference point. So I can actually break this rule intentionally because this situation permits it. So you wouldn't really...
I've got a good example of that.
Yeah, what's an example?
So Jinx is a champion that's really popular in Botlane Academy. And one of Jinx's major reference points is you want to play for the wave, generally speaking. You want to be pretty trade avoidance, right? Your champion is quite bad at trading. But once you develop great champion mastery and feel and mechanics on Jinx, in matchups where you have a range advantage, a sophisticated one, you can actually get little rocket autos on the enemy AD carry a lot. Like I played a game yesterday, which I made a live com about. I versed a Vayne, and I just beat her head in by constantly auto-attacking her whenever she goes for minions. But that would go against the reference points that I would put in a guide for Jinx, because you don't really need to do that. You can just kind of play to scale, get to your BF sword, get to Yuntal and play the game. But it is a massive win if you know when to like break the rules. But you have to know the rules before you can break them,
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It's perfect.
That's a great example.
So yeah, that's reference points. And then we have here Champ Mastery, Nathan.
Yeah, Champ Mastery. Okay, so
it's not the thing on the client.
Yeah, Champ Mastery is not
I've
your
got 500k mastery points on Fiddlesticks.
because there can be. It's just basically about getting in the games, right? So you see bronze players with 2 million mastery points with
Or in
champ.
ARAMs or normals, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you can get them in ARAMs, can't you?
I think
don't
so.
really know,
Someone in
but-
the comments confirm that. But
Yep.
Champ Mastery, how do I define this? I mean, I always sometimes it's a bit tricky with this one because, I mean, a lot of it really is tied to rank in a way. But, I mean, I guess you can play a champion and have very little champ mastery just because your baseline skill level of the game. Like, for example, I'm learning Viego, or I just did a Graves guide. Like, I'm instantly playing those in, Emerald, Low Diamond.
Yeah.
I don't have any mastery of the champion, but I can still win games because I'm playing...
Champion Mastery is actually incredibly complicated.
Yeah, it's hard to
Right?
define.
And I think
You can't look at the result of a game.
It's not hard to rank
So
entirely.
instead-
but it can be. It can be.
It's
tied
part
to
of the
rank.
formula. It's
Okay,
definitely part of it.
instead of trying to define it in one neat sentence, what I want to do here is I want to unpack the underlying what we think about Champion Mastery here in the BBC, right, and the WTO. So number one, it's time having played the champ with intensity, right?
Amount of repetitions.
Repetition with intention and intensity.
Yeah.
Right. That person, like if you someone with high Champion Mastery in our eyes has really tried things with intensity, and they've actually really tried to find what the best, they've really tried to push the limits of the champion. Okay. So they have great understanding of limits. They have a really good understanding of how to have consistency on that champion in terms of reference points. They have a great understanding of the champ's identity. And they know what a good ability looks, a good ability usage looks like on the champion, and bad ability usage. They know how to use their abilities well and efficiently, and they know how to pump out damage.
And what fights to take.
And
What is a good fight? What is a bad fight? That's a really big
They
part
can
of it.
clearly articulate what's a good fight and a bad fight and why.
Yeah.
And they're able to win really hard games
Yes.
where the comp is really hard, and when they have a really easy game, they're able to, I guess, close it out really cleanly.
Yep.
They know what a bad game looks like for the champion and a good game and why, and they could articulate why that is the case. And then I would say on top of that, we kind of perceive people, truly having champ mastery when they've played that champ as well to a high level of rank.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can't really say you have a
Well,
ton of...
that's just the outcome of doing all the things you just
Exactly
said.
right. So you can play with intention, you can do all these things, and you could have, a trillion mastery points with, Katarina, but you're in gold. We wouldn't really say you have... I mean, you kind of do. You have elements of champion mastery, but we wouldn't really say you're a master of that champion. You can't really say you're a master of that champion until you've kind of performed to that with that champion, at least in Master Plus. And the reason for this specifically, at least, I mean, I don't want to speak on your guys' behalf. I want to say for me specifically is because you're not going to know what the limitations of the champion are macro-wise.
That's the big difference.
That's the big difference. You may be able to execute things, right? That's fine. You even mechanically, you may have mastery. You know how much damage, but you don't know the limits of the champion macro-wise. And you're only a master of half of it. Rather, you know what I mean? There's two sides of the coin.
There are a lot of players. I remember thinking back to our top lane journey again. There are diamond players who are bloody good at their champions in lane and can really test you. And
they have amazing fighting, good mechanic.
100%. Because there are players in Master who might not be even as good at those skills. So there are different parts of Champ Mastery as well. But those Diamond players are clearly in Diamond because they are not closing out the games.
So they have champion mastery, but I wouldn't say they're a master of their champion. Is what I'm saying.
Exactly.
So champion mastery is one of those things. It's on a scale. It's never ending. We all have varying degrees of champion mastery, and how much champion mastery you have is based off how well you can answer all those things and perform in all
And
the
your
areas.
ability to execute.
And your ability to
obviously.
execute. It's the theory and the execution. It's everything together.
All right, let's move on to win conditions now. I talked a little bit about that with Rek'Sai. So
That's how you win, Nathan. You should be able to explain this one.
Yes, I'm the win condition connoisseur. All right, so let's. I think using examples is great, right? Okay. So, win conditions. Junglers love to talk about it in terms of pathing and where we want to go to. So
They do it in the load screen.
Yeah, in the load screen,
Yeah.
right? I actually that was my problem as a coach initially. Is I'll just spend that just talking about that, but then the person just plays the lane really badly and
Yeah, one trade changes everything, right? Yeah.
that's right. Or they just All right, so let's use an example. The most obvious one, Malphite. Malphite into a heavy AD comp, right? great overall win conditions. So there's good overall win conditions, and then there's sort of like, I guess, sort of early game win conditions in a way. I wouldn't probably even call them win condition, but let's say I have a Fiora, the enemy has a Fiora. I have a Malphite, and the enemy has a Fiora, but they're full AD. So I'm not really going to be pathing, I don't really have much kill threat on that in the early stages of the game, but Malphite overall is a good win condition for me. Now win conditions also come into, okay, well then who's strong and who's weak? Literally just tab at 15 minutes in the game, who has lots of kills. That's a great way of seeing a win condition. But another example, I've got a Lucian Nami. My Lucian is 6-0, but the enemy has a Kali mid who's fed. That Lucian, even though he's 6-0, is actually going to be quite used. He's actually not that good of a win condition.
Look, we could spend hours talking about win conditions and what they could possibly be, right? So they're examples of win conditions. I think just very simply, what people need to wrap their head around is that it's a way to strategically win the game, right? It's an avenue, right, for you to strategically win the game, utilizing potential strengths and weaknesses of kits and the interactions of champions in that particular game, right?
That's where game knowledge really
comes in. Win condition assessment is one of the highest skill cap, but there is never ending. It's objectively never ending, right? So what, Nathan, you're describing, let's say, again, those scenarios, you have a fed Lucian Nami, but the enemy has a fed Akali. You're now trying to do some mental gymnastics, figuring out
all the variables.
How do I? What's better? Do I peel my Lucian Nami? Do I say, okay, my Lucian Nami is actually not going to be that impactful. I should play through someone else. Should I build full MR so I can just sit on this? The options are endless and limitless. It's at a high level. What you need to understand, though, it's just how are you going to win the game?
Yeah.
Based off what you see in front of your face, based off who's fed, who's weak, and how those champions interact. How do you want to win the game? And win conditions can stem from champions, and they can also stem from neutral objectives, right? So win conditions,
holistically,
dragons,
or side lane,
exactly right.
I can't team fight this game, or we team fight, we win team fights.
So you have win conditions in terms of champion archetypes and the way the champs interact. You have win conditions in terms of comps. You have win conditions in terms of objectives. Even the macro win condition, we win via 1-3-1ing. We win via 5v5ing. We win via flanking, getting flanks, whatever the hell it might be. These are all just avenues, ways to win the game and kill the Nexus. That's what a win condition is.
This has no skill cap, like you were saying. I have a vivid memory of this game I played, again, thinking back to top lane, with Tim. It's actually on Tim's YouTube channel, Mysterious. We're dual commentating the game. I'm playing Renekton. I win my lane really hard, but the enemy have a fed brand or something. I cannot team fight in that game. It doesn't matter what I do. I can maybe team fight around my flash, but I won that game through the side lane as Renekton. So Renekton is a team fighter, generally speaking. He wants to group at neutral objectives, get there early, set up control, play these big brawling fights. But in that specific game, I couldn't do it. So I pivoted from the actual champ identity because of the win conditions. So it can kind of override
It's where you break the rules a bit.
Yeah, exactly. So you can really, very high skill cap, I would say.
And this is, I feel like, a big part of coaching as well, especially in Emerald. We get into this is where I spend a lot of time in Emerald, making that jump from Emerald 4 to Diamond 4 and Diamond 4 to Master. We're really starting to get into the weeds of what is your role this game? What are the win conditions? How do we break down compositions? And it's broadening your game understanding. That's what the challenge of League, one of the big challenges of climbing to those Ela brackets are.
I feel like it's so much harder for mid support and jungle though. Because from my perspective, playing AD carry or top lane, it's like you either are the win condition or you're not the win condition.
Yeah,
you're either your strong side or your weak side.
You don't really have much to say.
No, I'm either going to get played towards, so I have to stack waves and dive, or I'm not going to get played towards, and I have to not die, right?
Yep. As an AD carry, it's basically useless. It's actually pretty.
You just have to drop the ego and realize when you're not the win condition.
Yeah.
That's the useful part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's also important to identify when you are because sometimes people get too much in the weeds with win conditions and just make you the win condition for a lot of champs, right? And that's sort of what you're saying with ADC and stuff like that. But so you got to simultaneously again weigh that up with the holistic comp as well. I find that everyone wants to be the hero of the game, right? So
but also it's not competitive. We're not playing LCK.
Yeah.
You're not going to sacrifice yourself for someone else 100%. We're playing solo queue.
All right, let's move into the red light, green light concept. This is a term that I came up with.
Yeah, you and Netflix.
Me and Squid Game. So red light, green light. That is sort of tied to our last episode, guys. We were talking about chess turns, but more specifically, it's there is certain times on the map, and it's really tied to minion waves, I guess, where you have a green light. The green light's essentially situations where you're able to be aggressive. You could walk into their jungle. You can, control an area of the map. You can, I guess, gank a lane a lot of the time. And a red light means that there is no play to be done. Your teammates are in base, specifically your strong member in the mid game. The enemy team has a built-up big minion wave. That's really simply put. It can really vary in games as well. Like sometimes you can have. I guess it's really tied to people's base timers. I find a lot of times.
It's like who's on the map, who's off the map. Isn't that the biggest one?
Yeah, the man advantage, I guess, right? You can have red lights for 90 seconds and people lose their minds. You could have green lights for a long time periods of the map, and it's constantly changing, just like a traffic light. Now there actually is like the orange, the yellow light, the in between to be a bit more like these. This is when
proceed with caution.
Yeah, proceed with caution. It's more nuanced. It's like we're both contested midway. We both have pushes, but we have options to kill people. So there's also that aspect which is a bit more advanced. The game's not that binary where it's either I can do something or I can't. This is like fighting 4v5s, like man advantage, disadvantage, because the enemy team has.
It's got more nuance for sure.
Yeah, more nuance. That's really all I have for red light, green light. That's sort of my definition there. Curtis, do you have anything to add that one? All right, let's go talk about, again, we're going more into in-game stuff. Let's go, what is mechanics and micro?
You made a video on this, Curtis.
Yeah, I don't want to overcomplicate it. We'll
link the video.
Yeah, we'll link the video, hopefully, if we remember.
I'll do it.
So very simply, you have kind of like baseline kind of inputs, right? And this is, people would think traditionally of a lot of these things about like your reaction times and like your actual clicking and things like that. The way I want people to really think about it at a high level is you have the strategic aspect of how you're moving your character. The strategy, for example, I'm gonna like dodge in a particular way, or I'm going to like bait out abilities, or I'm gonna like fake last hits. But then you also have like the actual mechanical input of that. So think of it as like, I want to use a real life example because I think it helps people. Let's think about like the squat. Okay, there is the technique behind the squat. And having the bar placement, the footwork, and there's all that. There's all the actual technical aspects. But then there was actually having the muscle, the strength to be actually complete the exercise. So when it comes to mechanics and micro, I feel as though most people don't struggle with the inputs and like clicking. They struggle with like actually the strategic aspect of moving their character. Most people know how to move their character quickly if they want to. Most people have pretty okay reaction times. Most people can actually input the commands. They struggle. Most, I'm saying for the most part, at least who I work with.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say micro is I might butcher this. I might embarrass myself in that video. I think mechanics I labeled as the umbrella term being the actual like strategy, and micro being the input, like the actual inputs. I could have had them back to front. I can't remember. I made that video like a month or two ago. So again, I think that video explains it a lot better. If anyone really is fascinated about this topic, I would recommend checking out the video. I not only talk about what they are, but also how to improve at each aspect and how to, really deconstruct it in your own time.
And the outcomes of those is like good skill shot usage, anticipating enemy abilities, staying high HP, spacing and tethering is very important. Like, there's a lot of things what you'll actually only see the outcomes of a lot of mechanics.
Let's use the example of tethering, because that's a really common one, right? People talk about tethering and kiting.
Probably have to define that.
Okay,
what is tethering?
Okay, so tethering, let's say every champion has a range. Okay, I like to
every ability has a range.
But I like to use the analogy of boxing, right? Yep. Imagine
reach.
You reach. Me and you try to punch each other. Your reach is going to be way longer than mine.
Correct.
So because your range is longer than mine, I'm going to have to be really careful about my tethering and my spacing, because otherwise you're just going to knock me out. So I have to get creative. I have to get creative to get in your range, and you have to like be careful. We're both playing that game of like, how do we utilize our range, play to our range advantage,
your goal sort of, how can I do damage while taking no damage?
Exactly.
That's really the goal.
And so especially if you're the one with longer range, this is where tethering becomes more relevant. In Charlie's case, if he has a longer reach, he could if he's really, really tight with his movement, he could hit me without me hitting him.
Yep.
right? And in League, tethering and spacing becomes hyper relevant with AD carries when you're kiting melees for lower people lower range, or supports that are lower range, or you're playing a major outrange and as an assassin. You don't want to get into that Echo EQ range. You don't want to get into that Fizz Q range. You don't want to get into that Akali Q range. Or spacing and tethering particular abilities with inside of a kit, right? Now the actual mechanical aspect, the micro aspect of that is, we're getting into the
vertical clicks.
Clicks, very short, sharp clicks. Vertical clicks, horizontal. We're getting into that's all the minutia of how to space it, space and tether. So at a high level, you have the concept, and then you have the execution.
Yep.
And my contention is that most people don't struggle with the inputs. They struggle knowing the actual ranges. You know what I mean? Like they don't know how to anticipate the ability. If you're not anticipating, if you don't know...
Well, it's back to mental stack
exactly.
again as well. It's
if
actually
you
back
don't
to mental
know
stack.
that Akali's going to queue you, how can you even have the conversation
start.
about... You can't even begin the conversation about spacing and tethering because you don't even have the mental capacity to think about Akali walking up to queue you. So that's why mechanics has to come kind of naturally later on, and then you can really min-max it later on in your journey,
Yeah.
And that, matchup understanding. That's why matchup understanding is so important.
Short clicks and long clicks. That's sort of tied to micro mechanics. You use that terminology a lot in your coaching sessions, Curtis?
Yeah, just very quickly, short clicks, long clicks. So short clicks meaning you're clicking, your character is actually traversing a short distance, right? The click is closer to your character, where a long click, your character is moving a longer distance, traversing a longer distance. In League, to have good quality, and Charlie, you were talking about Tim roasting you when you were playing in mid lane. When you're versing someone that doesn't have good quality clicking, utilizing both short clicks and long clicks, their movement becomes incredibly rigid, such that you can anticipate where they're going to move very quickly. So as you start to climb higher up in the ranks, I would say especially Emerald 2 plus, Diamond 4 plus, you will tend to verse players that start to understand this concept intuitively.
Yeah.
If you can actually engage in both short clicks, what's going to happen is that your character can turn very quickly. You can actually quickly be like, oh, I'm going to go from left to right or forward to backwards. Long clicks allows your character to traverse distance, and when you combine them together, you become really annoying. It's like, are they going to walk at me, or are they going to turn back? What are they going to do? It's really becomes very difficult to land skill shots and tether and space.
You become unpredictable.
And again, this is the underlying mechanism by which you become unpredictable. Sorry.
Yeah, and also if you're just constantly going between short and long clicks, you're almost naturally just going to dodge stuff a lot of the time. I find myself in fights a lot of the time. If I just have a very simple clicking pattern where I'm mixing it up, I'll just naturally dodge a lot of stuff without even really thinking about it.
Yep.
All right, that's micro. Macro. What is macro?
I want you to answer. I want you guys to have a crack at this. I'm keen to hear what your both take is on macro.
Big strategic decisions.
Big strategic decisions.
Nice.
So obviously you're thinking about
Put that in the dictionary.
map movements.
Page 9.
Getting specific things. I would love a little sentence for this, but I'm gonna maybe we can figure it out after this. It's map movements.
All right, you done? Can I have a crack?
Objectives. That's all I got, Charles. What do you got?
No, I'm not really sure. I'll have a crack, but it's not going to be any better than yours. So macro is the strategic decisions that you make to end the game. It's like we're in the macro. I guess it's not even a stage of the game because there's macro throughout the whole game. I think it's just like bigger picture decisions. Like you say, it's bigger picture strategic decisions that should align with
Lots of things
like win conditions.
It's an umbrella
points.
term. It's an umbrella term. It's an all-encompassing term for any strategic maneuver that helps you win the game.
Yeah, but there's lots of... It doesn't actually describe the factors. The factors would be like we've said, the reference points, the win conditions, who's strong, who's weak. All of those things would actually inform those decisions.
Yes.
But the decision itself would be a macro decision.
Yep, I think that's great. It's, again, all-encompassing term.
Decision making. There you go.
And I guess we might as well then micro, right? You have to do micro next to macro, right? Micro being the opposite, where it's not really about the big picture or strategy. It's more about the execution of a particular instance, right? That's kind of what the micro is relating to.
A high value death versus low value death. Now, we actually have a whole BBC episode talking about this. I think we talked about it for like 30 minutes in the topic.
I think it says die equals good. I think.
Yeah, I think that was the one. Really simply put, you're getting more experience and gold out of the play, or burning more resources is how you weigh up. It's about gold and experience, whether a death is high value and low value death. I guess the most obvious example is if you're an 80 carry, Charles, and you trade.
Yep.
I mean, top or I guess any laner, but you heavy trade with a big stacking wave that comes into you. The enemy jungler come and dives you. You die. Even if you trade one kill, but you lose 3 whole waves, a cannon wave. That is the lowest value death.
It's a difference between an end of review death and just defined death. Like, I had a game today where I went for a 2v2 when the wave was just outside my tower. I die to a Nocturne ulti, lose 3 waves on the tower, end of review.
Again, articulate this clearer. It's the net gold and experience.
Yeah.
Right, for both teams. Right, so who got the most net gold and experience from this particular death?
There's
right?
also other factors though, Curtis, like how much time and how many resources
time, yeah.
as well. Like,
so it's
summoner spells, ults.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's actually the net resources invested and gained and lost, right? So invested, I guess, and gained from a particular death. And it's on a scale, right? So on the one hand of the spectrum, let's say the highest value death would be that you waste multiple summoners.
It's like the Baus, by the way. A high value is the Baus.
He's the king of high value deaths. Exactly
correct.
right. You're buying all this time. You're wasting heaps of summoners and ultimates.
Yeah.
They're sacking waves to kill you.
They're Benny Hilling around the map trying to chase you.
Your team is getting objectives on the other side of the map.
Yeah.
And then you die and you don't have a bounty. And you're already 0-3 or 0-4. That would be the highest quality
game-winning death.
Game-winning death.
Yeah.
Whereas a low value death is like you have a bounty, you've got like a stacked wave that you need to attend to. If you die and
Baron's up in 5 seconds.
Baron's up in 5 seconds. They didn't have to use any summoners or any ultimates to kill you. And you burn your flash. It's like that would be like the lowest quality death.
Yep.
And you flip it as well. Okay, high value kill versus low value kill. I'm a Wukong. A dragon's up in 35 seconds. Let's say it's, 10, 12, 13 minutes into the game. I burn my ult to kill the support. I now have no ult for the dragon fight. Now I lose the dragon fight.
That's when it gets really nuanced.
And there are certain champions that really need to understand this more than others. I coached a Vladimir the other day, and they flash ultied ignited 0-5 mel under tower. And I'm like, you just lose the game.
Yeah, yeah. And that's crazy because imagine looking at that. You got a little 1-0. You get,
I might quit the game, by the way.
It's like, and I'm like, Vlad, and for people who don't understand, Vlad is one of the most summoner reliant and ultimate reliant champs in the entire game.
Yeah.
Your flash is the game.
Yeah.
You need to make sure every flash is so valuable because your kit's so limited. So yeah, not good.
And then now we've got, Charles, you added this one, the high quality question versus low quality questions.
Yeah, so I guess this is in terms of like questions you can either ask yourself in review, or I guess maybe I was venting this, questions other people ask in coaching sessions or in some of our communities. Like a high quality, it's not like I'm not making any value judgments or like on people. It's more like, what is the quality of your question in terms of what quality answer you're going to get? If you ask a high quality question, like a detailed question, maybe with an example, you're going to get a high quality answer. But if you ask a low quality question with low detail,
very general,
low context, low specifics, just like how do I lane into Maokai support? That would be a very generic question. And you're going to get some generic answers. Like I can tell you that you generally want to avoid playing near the bushes because of the saplings and you want to tether his W range. But at the end of the day, that's not going to give you nearly as much value as if you posted a clip of you playing the matchup and then we can see what you were doing wrong and get specific, right? So yeah, I guess that would be an example.
So there's levels of specificity.
Yeah.
There's also clips and content, examples, and then also on top of that, like how well thought out is the question? Have you tried to solve this answer
yourself first?
Like
where's it coming from as well?
And how relevant is it to your situation? Right. So again, the highest quality question would be you've really thought about it. You've tried to find an answer yourself. You can't, or you're still unsure. You've got an example. It's specific. And it's hyper relevant to where you're at in your journey. That would be like the highest quality question. And we can give you a high quality answer that will give you massive results.
Yep.
With one of the sayings we used to always have, Curtis, is general questions get general answers.
Yep.
And being general in League it's very muddy waters. You can get really confused very quick.
Leads to a lot of narratives.
Yes, absolutely. A lot
Which
of
should
really
probably
bad
be on
narratives.
the list. The word
Yeah, narratives.
narrative.
We haven't even got that here.
Well,
either.
that would be more so in our outer game. So
We
Oh
can't
my
speak
God.
about the game without using a billion terms.
Yeah.
Scary.
That's pretty much all our in-game ones. Is Ace Mentality, is that in-game or out of game?
Both.
Okay, let's finish off with Ace. So I think that what we do, guys, is that we go into Skool and Mailbag. We do another episode of Out of Game because look at how much is Out of Game.
Yeah,
It's
there's a
gonna
whole
be-
nother-
it's
How
gonna be
long-
another
how
two-
long has it been?
That's another 2-hour episode. I mean, it's been an hour.
Is it?
Yeah, we're almost at an hour.
Okay. Yeah, we're not going to get through all those.
So we'll break this dictionary into 2
Yep.
episodes, guys. So let's finish off with the Ace Mentality. This is a term that Coach Cupcake.
Yeah.
Ace, A being acknowledge the best play, C being communicate it, and then E being embrace reality. Now, Charles, I know you've been using this a lot recently in your coaching sessions. How do you sort of explain this to people?
Yeah, so Ace Mentality is just a really good framework for kind of... It's best used for situations where you think that someone is not aligned with you in the game. That's where I think Ace Mentality really comes into play. When you think your team's off doing something weird, it's like, did you do Ace? Did you do everything in your power to kind of align everyone and then adapt accordingly? Because it's tied to the idea that you can't tell your team what to do. You can't make them do things, but you can influence them. So acknowledging the best play could be like a classic one is trading an objective, right? Let's say a dragon's coming up and you don't want to fight it. Let's say you're just not strong enough, right? Very simply put. Acknowledge the best play would be, okay, we're not giving it. We're not contesting this objective and we're going to go top instead. Communicate that would be danger ping the dragon, use your body language to not be anywhere near that goddamn dragon and heavily ping the alternative play top. That would be great communication. We're danger pinging what we don't want. We're pinging what we want. Maybe you're even typing the word give in chat for extra points, right? And then embrace reality, which is the hardest part for everyone, is what do you do if your team tries to contest it anyway? And embracing reality in that situation could be either decision. It could be, I'm going to split push top alone and let everyone die and just embrace that everyone's going to die and just accept that I'm going to go top and get a T2 and I'm going to get money and everyone's going to die. Or it could be sending it in the losing fight on the 30% win and just playing it to your best ability and just, it's up to you in the moment, right? But that's what it would look like.
This is tied to playing with intention as well. You can't be... The Ace Mentality is a great framework for playing with intention because then you're able to... Again, you're thinking about all these things. You're communicating. I guess high intensity as well. Playing with intention and high intensity. The communicate part is always the one where people fall over. People think they have really good communication in games.
Yeah.
And you look and they look themselves and you're like, well, you did one measly little ping.
A little blue
one
ping.
little blue ping. There's no like, this is the best play. Let's do it. Let's get people excited about the objective. As I always tell my junglers. 3, like assist pings, like tell them to push the wave. Midway first, guys. Then let's move.
And Andy made this because like communicating your intent is such a big part of support. What you want to do with the wave at all times, what you want to do on your out of base, what objectives you want to contest and not contest, how you want to play fights. Like if you're not communicating that stuff with pings, you're just missing out as a support. I feel like other roles can get away with this a little bit. Like top lane, I don't really think it's as relevant. It still is to some degree, but there's other roles like support and jungle specifically where I think this is super relevant.
All right. That wraps up our in-game section of the BBC Dictionary. So this is sort of a we can have a sequel. We'll see if the sequel's better than the original.
Rarely is.
All right, moving on to our school post of the week. So the title of this one is How to Not Flame and Not Be a C Word. This is a PG-13 podcast.
He's an Aussie, probably.
Yeah, that's definitely a term that us Aussies are well known for using in a very
Hasn't come out on the podcast yet, though.
a very casual sense.
Not yet.
Not yet.
So this is from David. Davo. Hi, everyone. I added this as a BBC thing. However, it is open to everyone as I don't want to get banned. I have been playing since Season 3, however, took a break in Season 8 to 9, returned, and was playing mid for 2 seasons and now have returned to top. May have lost more games than I care to admit due to my flame in the jungle specifically because of the ganks, not ganking when there, in my opinion, is a clear window. This unfortunately has resulted in my last chance before a ban and more than one jungle AFK because of me. Before taking a break, I was mid-gold and now I struggle to get out of bronze. I've tried muting or turning off chat. However, I cannot help myself when I see things going wrong that I believe are wrong. I have 2 questions for higher elo players, Plat to Diamond. When you're on Smurf accounts, how do you keep your mental when you receive an unwanted or bad gank that results in you dying? More importantly, in your ranked games, how do you not get frustrated with others and manage your temper? Lastly, 2 things. Firstly, and most importantly, I'm sorry for anyone here that has been on the receiving end of my flame. It is more so at myself that I'm not good enough to win the game. Secondly, I asked Plat to Diamond as I guess you still have similar things happen and I feel like I could learn and hopefully grow from your advice more than other super high elo players. Please help me keep my account. It's funny, we just spoke about the ace mentality. The ace mentality is really going to help Davo here to not be a C word. He's clearly not embracing reality. To answer his question, if you're a Smurf, right? Smurfs, you can't even ask that for a Smurf. They're in a different mindset and mentality.
Yeah.
They don't care that someone is making mistakes because they're so confident
That's
they're
what
going to
they're
win the
signing
game.
up for.
Yeah, exactly right. That's what they
That's why
like.
they're there.
That's what they like because they want it. Because they know the enemy's going to be doing terrible things. They're just going to win the game, right?
Exactly right.
Smurfs are so confident that they're going to win. They don't care. They're not going to flame or care. Like the Smurfs are the ones that just like they don't even mute or they just don't engage with anyone because they think they're so higher level in terms of like their ego. They're not going to engage in that behavior. So that's a terrible question to be asking. That's a really bad question because the Smurfs are not in the same mindset as you. You're not even, they're so confident they're going to win the game anyway. How would you guys tackle this question?
Well, then there's so many things contributing to this. I think the first one that really jumps out to me is that they are automatically assuming that people are going to play really well and not make mistakes. It's a common fallacy. It's like you're expecting your teammates to play flawless League of Legends, and there's a reason there's a reason you're in bronze, and there's a reason these players are in bronze. And the reality is that people are going to be making a lot of mistakes, and they're going to be making a lot of mistakes through every rank or in your journey.
And you as well, dude.
And you as well.
Let's get curious. Let's get serious here. You are making game ruining plays. I always say it's like I don't have the right to flame my teammates when I am ruining in the game in multiple times in the game. And I view that and I say that to myself in my games playing in Master Plus. I am fully aware of me ruining the game for my team, and that's you're all doing it. We could bring up your games, David, and then we could literally systematically break down the massive 20. We're talking about 20%ers here that could be fixing your game in bronze. Like we're talking about reset timers. Champ identity, champ mastery stuff, all the stuff with
quality
the
of
definitions.
trading, ability usage, everything.
It's just, being not being a C word is like, let's just take some accountability and responsibility.
It's respect for the difficulty of the game. It's also like understanding that being humble. It's like being a little bit more humble, understanding that you are making a metric ton of errors and owning that and accepting that and remembering that it's just your journey. You're on your own journey. You're going into each and every game trying to get as much learnings as you possibly can, having a crack, and then taking those learnings and going into the next one and getting 1% better every single game. That's your goal. Doesn't matter what happens in that game. And I'll say the last thing here quickly. If your junglers are making errors similar to the same level of you are, you could bet your bottom dollar that the enemy junglers are doing exactly the same thing. That's why you're at this elo bracket. So your job should be thinking, okay, if we're all playing suboptimally, all I got to do is I got to try to capitalize on some of those errors. And I also got to maybe not make as many game losing errors as they are, right? Everyone's going to make them, right? Whether you want it or not.
Yeah. I mean, just high level, just focus on the controllables. Focus on what you can control. If your goal is to be the best mid laner you can be, then your jungler shouldn't even be in your mind. You should be distracting yourself with the details of what matters. Like, you should play your game, load up the VOD, look at how you played your laning phase. Look at how did you play around every neutral.
And if the jungler comes to your lane for a bad gank and you pinged it, just let the jungler die.
Yeah.
Literally, watch the jungler die in front of your face. and go back to farming your wave.
And if the jungler flames you, mute him. And if he leaves the game,
You shouldn't even see that. You should already be muted at all.
If he just leaves the game and just AFKs, just cop the loss. That's
cop the
fine.
loss.
It's completely fine.
And that
You should
barely
put
happens.
party chat on, David. Like, if you're listening, like, literally go into the settings of the game, go into the chat settings, and put party chat on.
Then you don't even need to mute all.
No, you can't see a goddamn thing. Like, people with, like, this sort of quote-unquote temper problems, like you're saying, you just don't have the right to open chat.
Exactly.
It's not healthy.
So, yeah, and that's the thing. You have to let people make mistakes. You know, because what he said there is like, he said, what do you do when your jungler comes and then you die? Like, you die, not them. Like, how that doesn't make any sense. That means
You clicked something with your mouse, man.
Yeah, they didn't make you do anything, right? So that means you didn't have the foresight. You didn't have the ability to read that was going to be a bad play, such that that's equally your responsibility than it is their responsibility. If you knew that it was such a bad play, you never would have gone for it in the first place.
Yeah, and let's just like take like a childlike level of curiosity here. Maybe he's literally never heard of the idea of saying no. Maybe he thinks that to win a game of League, it's like follow everything up, be a team player. Like, the jungler's coming, got to keep everyone happy. Got to like make two people dying together is better than like going for a bad play or whatever. But yeah, you could just say no, let him die. Just experiment with that. See how that feels to just kind of let that happen and just keep playing the game. You know.
All right, some things for you to think about, David. I think we need to be a little bit more internal here rather than external. And hopefully you can keep your account. And I think that Charles' tip there, just go into the settings and just put on party chat so you don't even have to do /mute all. It's very helpful because you do not have the right to use the chat when you can't control yourself and you are making many game-losing errors. Mailbag time, guys. Away we go! Welcome back for Nathan's Mailbag. Jingle, jingle, jingle song. Alrighty then. Our first question here is called Mailbag Duo-in question. Now, duo queue is a very hot topic on this podcast. People who have listened to this podcast is well aware of Curtis, I, and now Charlie's stance, who we're going to say shares our stance, Curtis and I, that duo.
I'm a bot laner, man. I love duo.
Yeah, this is gonna be maybe a 2 versus 1 scenario.
Yeah, I'm gonna defend it.
Curtis and I, duo queue, we've seen there's a graveyard of duo queue. There's a graveyard. The Riot Games is a graveyard, an online graveyard of duo. People have duo queued and not improved at the game. All right, so let's see if Kevin here can maybe convince us otherwise. Hello, BBC Podcast. I wanted to submit a question for your mailbag related to duo-in. I've heard you say on the podcast before multiple times about how duo-in isn't good for your learning journey and that it's bad for your learning specifically. However, my experience with duo-in has been contrary to this, and I want to understand whether this discrepancy is because of the type of duo-in you normally see, or if it's because I'm on a massive copian and am self-rationalizing learning because I secretly love the LP gains and fun of duo-in too much. Great question. That's some introspection there. I've been climbing steadily from Iron 3. Never played ranked before this season, except to mess around with different champs roles and ended bronze that season with like 15 games played. And I'm currently at Emerald. I started duoing with a friend in Plat 2, and we currently have an 81% win rate over 27 games. We ended up having very complementary playstyles and champion pools and work very well together. If you count the LP gains from this, technically I was boosted into Emerald through duo-in. However, right after going on a massive win streak with this friend, I went to play solo games in the new high MMR I was in the next day. And I found every single game extremely easy and that my understanding of the game had seemed to increase. I found it easier to pass information and was feeling the flow of the game a lot better after duo-in. This continued as I duoed more games and played more solo queue games. We're going to get up his duo PGG here quickly and his other duo PGG's friends. So so this is the main, this is Kev, Emerald 3, 110 wins, 67 losses. So we're looking at the sample size of games here.
Amumu OTP.
Is it an Amumu OTP, just flat out jungle. And his buddy here is a Cho'Gath and Yorick top laner who currently has 34 wins and 24 losses and a 60% win rate. So that's some context there. And these looks like their new account. Like, where are these guys at?
No, you can see all the previous seasons.
So this guy's this guy's not new to the game. The other guy,
Goofus has played a lot.
yeah.
Old mate here has what level's the account? 194. So
He's played a lot of normals. So yeah, these guys have played the game a lot. Just a lot of normal games.
I mean, this
No,
guy's
played a
played
lot of
ranked a lot.
seasons.
Yeah.
This guy's played.
Well, season 2023.
No,
wait,
press
how-
a few more.
Oh,
No,
it
that's
is.
it.
Okay.
So still both new players.
Yep.
We're talking
Or
about
at least new accounts. We don't know the player history.
2 years.
That
Alright.
guy went. By the way, if you look at his ranked history, he was gold and then plat.
Yeah,
that
gold,
that
plat,
means his
plat, gold.
first season he was gold and plat. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So with this guy could have easily played for more seasons than this. It's very rare you see someone the very first ranked season they've ever played
These
get in
days,
gold.
yeah, 100%.
These days.
Yes,
Or what's happened? Yeah, he's played a lot of normal
You
games.
could have done what I did.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Played
the
a
same.
shitload of normal
No idea.
games.
Hard to say.
Or could just be naturally talented
Yep.
on Cho'Gath.
Yep. Well, Drogath also, by the way, at this point is actually really strong.
Right now as well.
Right now, yeah.
Yep.
All right, so now I have some reasons why I think Duo-In has actually helped me improve at the game and has in fact accelerated my learning and understanding of the game. Number one, the rubber duck troubleshooting method in programming. There is a form of troubleshooting where you explain the problem you have to a rubber duck. In the process of this explanation, you come upon something you'd missed out previously, or you see the problem in a new light, as speaking it out clearly and in simple terms helps shed light on issues. Similarly, during the game, I am constantly conveying information around the map to my duo partner. In order to do this, I'm forced to gather as much information as possible. And by speaking it out loud, I end up internalizing the information. Furthermore, I also have to convey my plans and intentions to my duo partner along with small reasons why. This forces me to think further ahead and actually consider the information I've gathered, whether my plan is good or not. Number two, my duo partner and I have both are relatively stable in stage 4 issues. After a bad play or a mistake happens, we try to objectively identify areas which we could have played better. It also helps reduce tilt when you can immediately go into an improvement sounding board rather than stewing in your own head. Number three, my duo partner actively provides me information, almost coaching, when it comes to things related to top lane, like matchups, macro. We have priority, what his priorities are, what he wants to do and why. These are all things that I'm severely lacking in as an Amumu jungle OTP who climbed without learning any laning fundamentals. He's not been a laner at all. Normally, I would be left wondering what my top laner was doing and whether it was good or not. But with someone who has hundreds of games of top lane and is of similar skill level to me, I can quickly get answers and understand the game from a different role's perspective and how it relates to my job as a jungler without having to pass the fog cloud of solo queue or watch dozens of videos about a role that isn't directly related to me. Number four, and lastly, the training grips analogy. When you train your back in the gym, if you want your back to be really strong, you use grips so your wrist doesn't become a limiting factor. It allows you to isolate the muscles you actually want to train, and even your grip doesn't keep up as a result. That's not what you're training for anyway, and you can separately train your grip in specific exercises. Similarly, I feel that having a stable top laner who is setting all the macro and information coming from the top side of the map frees up my mental stack to focus on the rest of the game. That allows me to fully lock in on learning the other parts of the game and develop things like gathering and processing information into a second nature. Now, this does mean that when I solo queue, I now have a weakness in that part of the game, but I now have to actively focus on. However, because of the time spent duoing, the rest of the game now consumes a lot less of my mental stack, and I can now fully focus on improving that portion of the game without him around, leading to both portions improving. Basically allows me to hard isolate and focus on different parts of the game while controlling the certain variables. This was kind of long, but yeah, do you think that if people treat duoing properly and have the correct mindset when doing it, it can actually be valid and good tool for learning? Or is this just a massive copian and I just love winning, so my brain made this all up to keep me feeling good?
Okay, so I want to start a few things here. A few things that come to mind. Number one, I actually think this was a very positive experience for the Amumu. And there's a few reasons why specifically. He was a new player that had a lot of gaps in knowledge. So what was actually happening here was less so you're getting success from the fact that you're playing with someone else. It's actually kind of soft coaching.
Yeah.
You're playing with someone that's more experienced and filling in the gaps of your knowledge for you. So you're playing with someone that has had experience with the game. You're able to ask them questions. They're giving you actually information about lanes holistically, which is getting you to understand concepts that maybe would have taken you a lot longer to actually understand.
So when I say duoing's really bad, now that you say that, subconscious what I'm thinking about is like old school play or people that like a platinum and above. Like, there's like diminishing returns on duo queuing in a way. So when you're a new player, like a lot of people like, you know, leveling with friends. That's how we all learnt the game.
Played together.
Friends soft coached us by playing us in
Soft
normal games.
It reminds me of like buddies in like school. Remember how you had a buddy? If you're in like year 6, you get like a year 1 buddy and you like show them the ropes of school.
So this player, this top laner, is actually helping the Amumu massively, but the Cho'Gath is getting fucked.
Yeah, he's wasting his time.
The top laner is completely wasting his time. The top laner is actually getting worse.
Yeah.
The Amumu's getting the jungler's getting better. Yeah. That's the way. There's a trade-off going on here because that top laner, there's nothing he's learning from you.
No.
You're not teaching him anything about the game. Everything that he's saying, he probably already knows. He's just having a lovely time getting his jungler probably to communicate his gank threat.
Copping ganks, yeah.
Copping ganks, getting fed, and that's working well, right? But for him, right, when the duo is gone, I guarantee you he's going to really struggle because reality's going to come in. He's not going to get his jungler hovering him. Yeah. He's not going to get all those ganks. He's not going to be able to communicate all that intent. You're going to have to figure it out yourself. But the Amumu, again, because he's a beginner, he's getting into trying to understand the game holistically, got a lot out of this experience. But like Nathan said, you're spot on. This will have diminishing returns. At some point, when you've juiced all the information you can from this guy, you're done. There's nothing else to really learn here. So I think this was a very, very efficient and productive experience for the jungler.
Yeah.
More so than solo. I would actually say even more so than solo.
It's faster.
Faster.
He's missing things
Yep.
because he's not learning how to play with all the top laners. He's learning how to play with one top laner.
With one top laner, that's true.
And he's being spoon-fed a little bit, so he is probably missing that level of maybe deeper understanding of having to figure something out yourself. But yeah, he's getting info.
But you also got to, like, I think for this particular individual, he does seem quite aware.
He's not normal.
He's not normal. Yeah. He's an outlier.
Yeah, he's doing it with intention, for sure.
Exactly. And he's aware that he has a gap in knowledge. A lot of people would get results and they wouldn't even be aware that they're hamstringing themselves. Oh, I've played every game with Cho'Gath, and so what? But this guy's actually hyper aware that, okay, maybe I do have some weaknesses. Only playing with a Cho'Gath, only joining with a top laner, or, getting spoon-fed information about neutral objectives on top side. He's aware of that fact. That is immediately, that level of introspection has set him apart from nearly 98% of the league community.
Yeah.
Very, very, very few people even have this level of introspection.
And especially with people who duo queue, because when people duo queue, they're trying to band-aid up narratives
Band-Aid
around
solution
the game.
individuals.
They're just trying to get rid of one random teammate. That's all they're doing most of the time, mate.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
They just want better teammates on their team.
Duoing with a jungler as a laner has to be the worst thing to learn the game. Yeah. And to improve at the game at all. Because, like, imagine what it's going to be like when you go back to playing solo and you don't have knowledge of... Because the jungler might be tracking the enemy jungler.
Giving you information.
And covering you whenever you fuck your wave state.
Yep.
And diving on every stacked wave. Like, you're just in La La Land. That's not League of Legends. Like, you're just playing easy mode. You're 2v1ing the enemy top laner every game, basically. Like, what are you learning there?
And you'll see the LP difference if you look at that top. And we even saw in the top laner's OPGG, he was starting to lose a bunch of games recently. So he's plateauing. He's at his cap. And the reality, what will happen is that once he stops duo queuing, the reality will set in. He's completely wasted his time. So yeah, he's done a great service to you. To you.
Wow, look at his ranked solos. You see, wait, can I look if he's joined? So King Chen, is there King Chen? So they're playing with each other, by the way. They're losing every game together at the moment. King Chen. Look at that. Really
because like you said,
they've reached Emerald.
Well, they've plateaued, right? They've the thing.
And this is around the rank where I think duo is really dangerous.
Very dangerous.
This is where it's diminishing returns.
Because you need to be able to solve puzzles on yourself now. It's about game to game adaptation. You can't just gimmick your way through anymore.
Yeah.
Or if you do have a gimmick, you got to be very, very, very good at it.
Correct. Yeah, that's also something is if by duoing, you might get very good at duoing, learning how to snowball
how to win a particular way.
Yeah, exactly right. But that's so funny. Choggers is not going to help this Amumu once the Emerald Kindred starts invading him on his second buff and stuff like that. You can't
exactly.
You can't get help with that. You're going to get exposed.
So yes, I think overall it has been a very positive experience, and I think in your case because you're very introspective, you've got this person you had a good relationship with. It seems like you're actually getting into some high quality discussions, and you just got that level of introspection. Yeah, you got a lot out of it.
So now you should go find like a high diamond person to Joe with, get more info.
Yeah,
juice them up.
Juice the next
Juice
one.
them up. We should
Well,
start a
no,
business doing this.
Then
Come
you get a
on.
mid laner. No,
Yes.
next you get a mid laner,
Yes.
and then you get like a support. You just cycle through.
100%. Think
Yeah.
about like a really like high, like really rich individual who has all the resources in the world. That's what you would do. You would just get someone who's good at every role. You just milk him.
Yeah, probably.
Very efficient.
All right, so interesting email.
Yeah, very interesting. A different way. I would say last thing on that, there was a different. That's not the archetypal duo.
No.
Yeah.
And I forgot what I was going to say.
I think that actually it is archetypal in some ways, Curtis, because in every duo, there will be one player better than the other player.
True.
So someone is
most part.
benefiting and
Yep.
someone is getting strung along. That is the fact with
Yep.
most duos, right?
Yeah.
And the novelty of the duo experience typically offsets that pain, right?
Correct.
Right. The Cho'Gath was everything. I had such a blast. It was so fun. You know, even though they didn't get better, they probably
Yep.
like, oh, it was fun anyway.
Yeah.
You know, like the novelty of that experience probably. Oh, I didn't mind.
And
it.
the sample size was fairly low. They only had like 50 games this season,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
not that many.
And he was also the outlier. He's a hardcore BBC out using all the terminology.
Yeah,
we just define
exactly.
mental stack. He's very
Yep.
introspective. Again, he's not the
he
normal.
he already got to what platinum? What do you say? Platinum 2 by himself anyway.
Gold, I believe.
Was it
gold. Yeah, iron to gold. Yeah.
Right, gold. He got to gold, but which is
Iron to gold's a climb and a half.
that is crazy. The fact that
Yeah.
you got to iron to gold, but you were already gonna climb. He was already gonna
100%.
climb.
Yeah.
You were rock and rolling, dude. If you can get to iron to gold in that amount of short of time, you were always gonna get to platinum in a pretty short and emerald in a pretty short amount of time anyway.
With
You
or
were-
without duo,
With or without
yeah.
duo. Maybe sped it up a little bit, but you were rock and rolling, dude.
All right, our next question here comes from Dylan. The title of this email is 100% win rate on a new champ, Lux style or something else. Hey, Nate and Coach Curtis. Long time listener here. Love the podcast and look forward to every week's episode. Since I started listening back in late 2022, I've tried to implement the BBC philosophy in my ranked games. Over the course of the last few seasons, I went from bronze to silver to gold to a peak of platinum 2. This season, after taking a short break for the birth of my son, I wanted to continue my climb and set a goal of emerald by the end of the season. Little did I expect that I would have to achieve this goal in about just 6 weeks, calibrating in silver and reaching emerald in about 70 games with a 60% win rate. The destination was certainly enjoyable and I'm proud of my achievement, but I can't help but feel confused about the journey, and that's why I'm writing in. I've been staunchly following the BBC approach to ranked, and I played just my 2 core champions of Victor and Oriana mid lane to start my climb. I played intense 2 or 3 blocks. I reviewed my VODs after each session, but I wasn't getting the results I expected. At the same time, I was also interested in the new champion Mal, which coincidentally fit into my only from Arcane champion pool, which was fun for me thematically. So I started to cycle Mel into my ranked games whenever she wasn't banned. While Mel was a much simpler champ to pilot, I still expected there to be a learning curve given my lack of champ mastery. I was really surprised when I felt way more comfortable on the champion in lane, team fights, and just overall. When I finally hit Emerald, I played Mel 13 times and won every single game. Most of them convincingly and with stats that far surpassed my so-called main champion pool. What's up here? I wondered if I had been handicapping myself by playing more complex champs and that a simpler champion like Mal was more suitable for me. Or was Mal really just overpowered as many other people told me? Or was it just a lucky win streak? Hoping to hear a little insight from you guys. Thanks in advance for listening. Thanks in advance for listening and for the awesome show. Regards, Dylan. Here is his OPGG. What's going on here? Curtis as the mid laner.
So, number one, there's a few things. Number one, Mel has a very, very similar skill set that would be developed with Oriana and Victor. You're both immobile mages. You poke from range. And you play team fights and trades. Everything is basically identical. If you think about the way like a Victor would trade with E, it's kind of basically identical with the Mel Q, right? So the skills that you've actually developed over your time being an Orianna and a Victor player, kind of merge perfectly, fit perfectly with that of Mel, right? So that's number one. Number two, Mel was a kit upon release that was very frustrating for people to deal with. It was strong upon release, but I don't think it was actually that strong. I think people had just giant mental blocks with it. And the community's response to the champion's release was that this champ was broken, there's no counterplay, but whatever the hell it is, right? The reality, though, is that kind of fueled a lot of narratives. So when everyone saw Mel, because it was banned so often, people would think that champ was so overpowered, no counterplay, that people would play worse in the game. So
to help fuel the narrative that the champ's
exactly
really
right.
OP.
So, and that's why the champ actually had, I think, the stats before it even got reworked or changed it was like one of the lowest win rate champions.
It was 46, I believe.
Yeah, and it was like I think it was ranked like 60 out of 72 mid champs or something.
Yep.
And it was insanely high ban rate.
Yep.
Like 70 was it 70
70 something ban
70
rate,
something. Yeah.
Wow.
So you couldn't even get it.
I ban it every game.
Right, and it wasn't even that strong. It wasn't
yeah.
objectively that strong. It
No.
was. I think it was okay. Nothing. It wasn't weak, but like it wasn't that strong. And again, that's the community sentiment. So I think it was a combination of those two things. And then I would say number three, the kit is actually just very simple. It wouldn't really take much time to play a champion like Mel and learn it. All you need to understand is that you have this projectile on the Q, you have this reflect on your W. Your E is like the most archetypal stock standard control mage ability, and then your R is literally you can't miss it. So it's a very stock standard kit. So those factors all together over that small sample size of games, I think it makes sense to me. Obviously, maybe you got a bit lucky here and there. Maybe like I could easily imagine like a 75% win rate there or something.
Yeah.
Maybe he got a bit lucky in some of those games. Over it's very easy to get.
Oh, for sure. I think you have to get lucky to
right?
win
Get
every
if you're
game.
lucky. So let's say out of those 13, maybe 3 of them were lucky.
Sure.
Okay, so you could win 10 games on a champion if they're really, again, there's all those things aligned.
Also, if it's getting banned every game, then when someone comes up against it, they're going to have way less of a chance
They don't know
of
what
knowing
it does. Exactly right. Exactly right.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of dug myself a hole now because I banned it so much. I have never versed Mel. And that's just purely for, like, ease. When I've got for solo queue, I don't want to spend my time learning what the new champ does right now. I'm just making guides and stuff, so I'm just banning it. But I have to verse it eventually, so I will probably lose.
Because I first timed it yesterday in ranked on my main account in a challenger level game.
Yeah.
I won with it.
Yeah.
But it was a, like, I know I was missing a lot of damage. But after that one game, I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I get it. Like, it's a very, very simple.
I think it's
arithmetic kit.
scary, dude. I think that champion just on the surface, if I read its kit and I see it in games, it just, like, I just don't want to first
It's an annoying, it is an annoying.
It's so annoying. Like, that idea of a reflect and the ulti being undodgeable, it just seems like a lot to deal with. Like, just.
But it's not in reality. When you play it, it's not. Like,
we'll
it's
see.
one of those kits that it's like Yone. Everyone thinks Yone is the most overpowered champion when they verse it. But when they play it, like, oh my god, my champ is dog shit. It's so hard to play. It's exactly the same. It's like, because Mel's ability, think about it, in order to get the R damage, you got to land the Q and the E.
Sure.
The E is slow, glacially slow. Basically, if you're versing anyone that's competent, you're never going to get hit by the E. The Q, again, like, you can sidestep it. You got to get multiple rotations of the Q, like, you know how it like sits there to even get meaningful damage. And then remember, the ult only does a lot of damage if you have a lot of stacks. And what's the likelihood that you're going to get massive AoE on your E, you're going to get many people with your Q, and get many stacks on people in a team fight to get max value in a team fight with R? Not really. It's actually not that. It actually doesn't even make that much sense to me, in my opinion.
I imagine also with the reflective shield, like, you have that, but you're still very killable.
Oh yeah, 100%.
You can only reflect one thing.
And it's got a massive cooldown. So I mean, look, I think the kit's okay. I think it's way weaker than Syndra, way weaker than Victor, way weaker than many other champions in the game. I think Aurora is 10 times stronger, Victor 10 times stronger, Syndra stronger. I mean, I could list 10 champs that I think are stronger than.
But what about the part of his question, Curtis, tying it back to the email where he said, like, am I like sandbagging myself by playing difficult champs? Because
right,
I mean, I'm no mid laner, but Orianna and Victor
Orianna's
me
hard.
sound bloody hard. Like,
he's got it 45% win rate 20 games,
and that makes sense to me. And mainly Orianna, like, isn't it one of the hardest mid laners in the game?
Orianna's very difficult.
Yeah.
I would actually, if I see when I see people have pools of Victor and Orianna, I always say you don't need both.
Yeah.
And Oriana is one of those champions where, like, look, you can learn a lot with it, but I feel as though once you got what you got out of it, it's not really a champ that I recommend a lot of people play for a long period of time. Like, play other mages. Like, I think Victor. If you like Victor, just play Victor. Have that as your core, your core mage, and then you should pepper in other champions around your core mages, and that fill different archetypes. And there are other mages that just give you things that you're missing. Like, you could even have, like, there's other mages like Talia. You have like Ace or Vigar. Like, you have, you could have hybrid champions like Galio. You could have Aurora. You could have, there's just so many champions out there. TF, right? It's a niche mage.
At what point in someone's journey do you normally tell them
Lysandra.
to, like, branch out archetypally? Like, because is there a certain point where you say play just one thing and then maybe in like Platinum Emerald you want to diversify? Like, do you have a set rank?
I'll be honest, I'm way more flexible on that now. I don't like I used to be like really strict, but nowadays it's like if you want to have two different archetypes in silver, that's really what floats your boat. Do it.
Yep.
If I would say what's optimal, I would say you really want to start maybe seeing some other options in gold.
I say mid gold.
Yeah,
so
gold's a good good rank.
Yep.
All right, so we'll see how he goes. Maybe he plays another 12 games, has another 100%.
Yeah, if you kept winning now, that would be incredibly impressive to me.
Yes.
Like, now your win rate should theoretically balance out a little bit because it's going to get less banned since the changes, and I just don't think it's that strong.
Maybe he's just a naturally talented.
Yeah, and maybe you are just good at Mel. That could be that as well. You
just clicked.
You can just gel. That happens with all of us, right? All of us have played champions, and you've had like barely any games with it, but you just click with it. You just love the kit.
We all have eras with certain champions. Yeah, as well, 100%.
You go through a phase like, I'm just a god. I love this champ. It just clicks with me, and that can happen.
100%.
All right. Well, that wraps up our episode today, our dictionary episode. We'll have a part 2 sequel next week. So people saying, you didn't cover this, you didn't cover that. And if there's any terms that you want to hear.
Yes, we are going to get swamped.
We'll make
let
a
us
thread
know.
on
This
Skool.
is important because we can fill in the gaps.
Yeah, we'll make a thread on Skool, our Skool community as well.
Yes.
Yep.
What terminology do heroes use that you want to know more about?
Yep.
And we're going to be, I guess we could go back to
and maybe we should put the list that we've already covered so we don't get repeats.
The pinned one, yeah.
And the pin when we make the Skool post.
Well, I've already highlighted
I'm ready for this to be a 6-part miniseries, personally. I'm ready.
You guys are delusional.
There's going to be so many, dude. You don't understand. You speak a different language.
We do speak a different language here. We really do.
What is the language called?
I don't know.
League of Legends?
Yeah, probably. Pinglish, maybe?
Pinglish?
No, but it's like League of Legends, but it's like it's our own version
Yeah.
of League of Legends. Yeah, it's just the BBC dictionary.
I like motism.
Motism.
Motism?
Where'd that come from?
I don't know. Just
I like it.
I like motism.
Okay.
Morganism.
No,
Does that
motism.
work?
Morganism sounds too much like Mormonism.
I see.
Morganism.
Morganism's like a bug.
Sounds like an alien.
Like a genetic Morganism.
Yeah, it sounds like a genetic... Sounds like a human-alien hybrid.
Yeah, 100%. He's gonna burst out of Mott's fucking chest.
All right. Good work, guys. Let's keep on improving. 3-block process, which you guys would have no idea what it means because we didn't cover it in the episode.
And someone's going to send in like a little figurine. It's like a Morganism. It's like a little like
Dude,
alien
that's
thing.
awesome. I love the term Morganism now.
We'll see you guys next week.